In the Chike's family, love is not what destroys you, power is.
Imagine staring down at the man you love. He's wearing a custom designer suit. He smells like formaldehyde. And the lawyer standing next to you says, "Put the ring on his finger, or you go to prison for murder." Welcome back to the channel. Today, we aren't talking about ghosts in the village. We are talking about the monsters wearing Gucci suits in the city. What would you do if your billionaire husband died unexpectedly, and his powerful family gave you an ultimatum? Perform a secret, legally binding wedding ceremony with his cold, dead body in a private morgue, or lose your freedom forever. Lock your doors. Turn up your volume. This is the chilling story of Emmy Banks. This is a city where money doesn't just talk, it silences. It buys the police, it buys the doctors, then sometimes it buys the dead. Emmy lived at the very top of this food chain. She was a brilliant interior designer who married into ultimate wealth. Her husband, Chike, was a tech mogul. He owned data centers across the continent. They lived in a fortress in Banana Island, glass walls, marble floors, and absolute perfection. But wealth in this city is a blood sport. And Chike's family, specifically his older sister Zara, played the game ruthlessly. Zara was a corporate shark. She hated Emmy. To Zara, Emmy was an outsider, a girl with no pedigree who had somehow hypnotized her brother into leaving her his empire. And then, on a random Tuesday, the empire collapsed. Chike suffered a sudden, massive cardiac arrest during a private dinner. By the time the ambulance arrived, the tech king of the city was dead at 34. Emmy was shattered. She didn't care about the companies or the bank accounts, she had lost her best friend. But while Emmy was crying, Zara was calculating. Within 24 hours of Chike's death, before his body was even moved from the private VIP hospital morgue, Zara arrived at Emmy's house. She wasn't alone. She brought a team of cold-eyed corporate lawyers. Zara sat across from Emmy and dropped a thick legal file on the glass table. Chike didn't finalize his will, Zara said, her voice like ice. But he did sign a traditional oath of inheritance. An old family clause, modernized by our lawyers. To inherit his shares, and to prove to our family that you didn't poison him for his money, you must complete the final marital rites. Emmy was confused. "We are already married," she cried. Zara smirked. "You signed a court paper, yes. But in our family trust, the final vow is blood and breath. Since my brother has no breath, you will give him yours." The terms were horrific. Zara had arranged for a private magistrate to meet them at the morgue at midnight. Emmy had to dress in her wedding gown, hold Chike's dead hand, press his ink-stained thumb onto the corporate inheritance transfer, and then place a new, blood-dipped ring on his finger while reciting her vows on camera. If she refused, Zara had already paid off a toxicologist to fake an autopsy report stating Emmy poisoned Chike's food. It was a flawless blackmail trap. Marry the corpse, or go to Kirikiri maximum prison. At 11:30 p.m., Emmy stepped out of a black SUV into the pouring rain. She was wearing her white silk wedding gown, now soaked and clinging to her skin. She walked into the private basement morgue of the clinic. The room was freezing. The fluorescent lights buzzed violently above. There, in the center of the room on a stainless steel table, lay Chike. His skin was pale. The magistrate stood in the corner, looking terrified but holding a camera. Zara stood next to the body, holding an ink pad and a gold ring. "Do it," Zara commanded. Emmy walked slowly to the table. Her hands were shaking so violently she could barely feel her own fingers. She looked down at the face of the man who used to kiss her forehead every morning. Now he was a cold statue. Emmy picked up the ring. The magistrate hit record on the camera. "Repeat after me," the magistrate whispered. "In life and in death, my soul is bound to yours." Emmy choked on her tears, repeating the words. She reached out and took Chike's stiff, freezing left hand. But as she pressed his thumb onto the ink pad, as Emmy pressed his thumb onto the legal document, she felt something. It wasn't a movement. It was a vibration. A very faint, almost impossible thump. She froze. She kept her hand wrapped tightly around his wrist. Thump. There it was again. A pulse. It was incredibly weak, spaced far apart, but it was there. Emmy looked up at Zara. Zara was smiling, practically drooling over the signed document. Zara had no idea. In a fraction of a second, Emmy's brilliant mind connected the dots. Chike wasn't dead. He was in a chemically induced paralytic coma. Zara hadn't paid a toxicologist to fake an autopsy. She had paid a doctor to administer a neurotoxin to mimic a heart attack. Zara was going to use this morbid video to humiliate Emmy, take the company, and then let Chike be legally embalmed alive the next morning. Emmy knew if she screamed "he's alive," Zara's private security outside the door would rush in and kill them both. She had to play the game. Emmy finished the vows. She slipped the ring onto Chike's finger, leaning down to kiss his cold cheek. And as she did, she whispered into his ear, "I know. Hold on." Emmy signed the document and handed it to Zara. Zara laughed, a wicked, victorious sound, and walked out of the morgue with her lawyers, leaving Emmy alone with the body for a final goodbye. The second the door clicked shut, Emmy grabbed the heavy metal oxygen tank from the corner of the morgue and smashed the biometric lock on the emergency exit door. She didn't call the police. She knew Zara owned the local precinct. She called the Federal Drug Law Enforcement Agency and the city's top investigative journalists. She told them a billionaire tech CEO was being held hostage in a private organ harvesting ring at the clinic. Within 10 minutes, the clinic was surrounded by federal agents and news vans. They stormed the basement. When the paramedics rushed in, they found Chike. They administered the antitoxin. Zara, who was sitting in her G-Wagon in the parking lot reviewing the footage of her victory, was suddenly blinded by the headlights of 4 federal tactical vehicles. Zara was dragged out of her car in handcuffs, screaming, on live national television. The inheritance document she forced Emmy to sign. It was confiscated as Exhibit A for attempted murder, extortion, and corporate terrorism. Chike spent 3 weeks in recovery. When he woke up, he immediately fired every executive who had sided with his sister and transferred the absolute controlling shares of his entire empire to the one person who literally held his hand in the dark, Emmy. My people, the city is a jungle made of concrete, and the most dangerous predators don't live in the wild, they sit in boardrooms. Greed is a poison that blinds the wicked to their own downfall. Zara thought she was burying her brother and framing his wife. Instead, she dug her own grave and handed Emmy the shovel. True love and sharp instincts will always outsmart cold, calculating malice. What an absolute roller coaster. Let me ask you right now. If you were in Emmy's shoes, standing in that freezing room, would you have noticed the pulse, or would fear have blinded you? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I read every single one. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, do me a massive favor, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a drop. We tell the deepest, most thrilling stories from the heart of the city right here. Share this video with someone who loves a brilliant plot twist. Until next time, stay sharp. Bye for now.